Greetings, I am Wham Bam Duel, and this is my little explanation of Spell Commander's latest deck, the 2024 Yusei Fudo deck. As you can see, much like with the 20 card extra that Jaden had, there is once again an 18 card extra with Yusei because there's just a lot of synchros. I know some people are going to be wondering why I'm not playing the dual dragon version of Stardust in Stardust Spark Dragon as well as Chronicle Spark Dragon or Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon. And honestly, it's solely because there's already a ton of other XL Synchro, Delta XL, Limit Over XL, what have you, Stardust Synchro monsters that are just way better than all of the manga counterparts. By far way better than all the manga counterparts. Same kind of goes for Stardust Assault Warrior. It's okay, it reborns a junk monster on summon and deals piercing damage, but I think Stardust Charge Warrior is just way better for that card draw. I'm really happy I got to include room for some Assault Mode cards. Obviously not playing all of them, just want to play like the main ones, like the 1-card starter and its pieces to get there, as well as 0 in case Assault Mode goes to the hand, because for some reason Assault Mode Activate can only summon from the deck. So if it's in your hand, this card won't work, and you instead need to use this one. That's the only reason why I include both of these, is just for that purpose. For the Crimson Dragon support, I figure Yusei's not going to be breaking out the Crimson Dragon unless he's dueling, like, super seriously against somebody. So I decided to leave the Crimson Dragon and Converging Wishes in the side deck. But, you know, if he needs to duel someone, like, super serious, these cards can easily be slotted into the deck, as well as the other Signer Dragons to work with Converging Wishes. That way you can have Stardust Dragon defeat an opponent in the same way that Yusei beat Zone. For the extra deck, Junk Warrior is a given. It's one of Yusei's favorite monsters, can't not play it. Jet Warrior. A, we're playing Jet Synchron in this list, and B, it can be cheated out of the extra deck when Stardust Warrior is destroyed. It's usually your best monster to summon off of Stardust Warrior, because when it's summoned, it can just target and bounce any card the opponent controls. Additionally, since Stardust Warrior's summon is treated as a Synchro summon, its graveyard effect still works, allowing you to reborn it. With Signal Warrior, as well as other cards such as Synchro World and On Your Mark Get Set Duel, I wanted to give Yusei all the signal counter cards and stuff like that, because all the effects you can activate that involve removing signal counters from the field are basically the speed spells from Turbo Duels in the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's anime. For example, I don't know all the speed spells, but I do know that On Your Mark Get Set Duels effect is reminiscent of Angel Baton, which is basically draw 2, discard 1. So it's like a discount Graceful Charity. Signal Warrior's speed spell effects aren't bad either. And of course, Synchro Worlds just makes for excellent spamming. I really did my best to give like a good balance between the like Synchro Warrior part of the extra deck and then the Stardust and Axel Synchro part. It's roughly like these take up the first 6 or 7 slots, and then these take up the last 11. If I had to select 3 cards to put in the side deck, just to have a 15-card extra deck if you tried to duel with this, I would probably move Signal Warrior, Shooting Star Dragon, and Shooting Quasar Dragon. Those are the 3 I'd put in the side deck, because while they are absolute classics, the other Axel Synchro monsters are just far and away better. But luckily for this profile, it's an 18-card extra deck. If you don't like my 3 picks, you can swap out whichever ones you want. One card I'm really happy that exists is Duelist Genesis. For those who don't know, Duelist Genesis is named after the set known as The Duelist Genesis, which is the set that introduced Synchro monsters into the game. So this is one of the few cards that's actually named after a box set. And it's quite good. It searches any Synchro backrow if you have a tuner on the field or in the grave. So it searches Synchro Creed, which can just straight up be a pot of greed if you have enough Synchros. Synchro Chase, which is really good for Synchro climbing. And then any of these 4 Synchro backrow, which Synchro material is basically super poly for Synchros. Synchro Deflector is kind of a negate attack and destroy a monster, which isn't bad. Definitely good that it's searchable, otherwise it would just not be very good. Force Back is like multiple compulses in one. And Synchro Zone is a floodgate that can also Synchro summon during the opponent's turn. Not bad. Naturally, I had to include Yusei's set of Scrap Iron backrow, including Sacred Statue. One card I definitely wanted to include in this deck was Turbo Booster, because Yusei got it from one of his Junkyard Pals rally near the start of 5Ds, and it's still not a bad card. It's a free summon during a turn you've normal summoned, which is basically every turn. So, this is just like a really good level 1 extender for Yusei. Similarly with Quillbolt Hedgehog, this is also another good level 2 extender. Rush Warrior is kind of taking the place of the former Speed Warrior, because its effect is way better. It's like a Honest for Warrior Synchro monsters, just doubles their attack, which is pretty freaking good. Another card that's actually reminiscent of Speed Warrior, believe it or not, is Junk Speeder. Who could have guessed that? Because its attack can be doubled during the turn it was Synchro summoned, which honestly I think is really cool. But of course that's not the effect you want to play this guy for. You want to play him so you can just put a bunch of Synchrons on the field. Yeah, Junk Speeder is the heart and soul of the modern Yusei strategy. The only reason I'm playing the old Stardust Shalong is because of Stardust Worm's effect, because it says it summons up to 2 level 1 light dragon monsters from hand or graveyard. So the only other applicable, so usually you're going to want to use like Stardust Worm to tribute itself, summon Converging Wills, and then you need another level 1 light dragon. Best one I could find for Yusei's purposes was Stardust Shalong. With the junk monsters, I mostly just wanted a bunch of monsters that could be easily summonable. So you've got Dragonlit, who can be summoned when a Synchro's up and is a good level 5. Servant's good for any junk monster on the field. Junk Ford's a free summon on an open board. And Converter is one of the best cards in this deck because it discards itself in a tuner, which there are like a ton of tuners in this deck, obviously, and then grabs any Synchron. Usually you grab Junk Synchron, summon Junk Synchron, Reborn Converter, use Junk Synchron and Converter to make Junk Speeder, Chainlink 1 Speeder, Chainlink 2 Junk Converter, then you get to bring back Junk Synchron, and then you get to put 4 other Synchrons on the field. Or if you have Synchro Chase up, you also get to revive Junk Converter again, which is also really good. So you can just, there's so much, like, versatility with just Junk Converter, and maybe Synchro Chase if you're lucky enough to get that up at the same time, which it is searchable by Duelist Genesis, so hey, there you go. Obviously, tuning is a really good card. I just wanted to give the Junk Synchron art of it for this deck because, you know, Junk Synchron, Yusei, that's the way you gotta go. Not gonna lie, Double Summon doesn't have a whole lot of utility anymore, but I've always personally considered this just such a huge, iconic Yusei card. Like, he uses this so many times throughout the series, and it's still not a bad card. It's still good for the titular Double Summon. And then just a bunch of other monsters to help facilitate Synchro spam strategies, like Doppel Warrior to create 2 level 1 tokens, Synchron Carrier to create level 2 tokens and get another additional normal summon, hey. Synchron Explorer, just for decent recovery into a Synchro summon. I really think this is the best culmination of Yusei's cards. And then you've got Majestic Mirage and Stardust Wish, which are just a couple of Stardust support cards, naturally. They're both pretty good. Let's go through some of the other Synchron monsters and go over why they're not in this deck. So, technically they're Speedroid Wing Synchron, but obviously that's a Yugo monster, so that's why that one's not here. Quick Draw is a very good old Synchron. He can be used as any Synchron monster for a Synchro summon, but the only monsters that require specific Synchrons in this deck are Junk and Jet Warrior, and they're both level 5s, so Quick Draw Synchron kind of loses some of its utility. Because we're not playing a whole lot of Synchros that specifically name certain Synchrons, I didn't really see Quick Draw as that useful. Hyper Synchron's a very cool monster, but if I'm being honest, it's just not super good. Road Synchron and Road Warrior, these two are personal favorites of mine, but they're just not really worth anymore. Road Warrior's a little bit of a chore to summon because it requires 2 or more non-tuners, and then all it does is works as a 3000 attack extender, which is just a little bit awkward. Then there's Bry Synchron. Having the effect of a Synchro monster it summons be negated is not great, even if it does give a 600 attack point boost. No thank you. Even though it looks more like a power tool monster, I decided to include Revolution Synchron anyways, because even if it does look like Power Tool Dragon, it definitely feels like one of the cards that Leo would have given Yusei in his duel against Zone alongside his Power Tool and Life Stream Dragons. It's just that this card didn't exist back then, but Yusei totally would have used this against Zone, and I think Leo may have even let Yusei keep this card after the fact. Not to mention, it's still a Synchron, which still falls within Yusei's archetype, even if its aesthetic is a little more fitting of Leo. If we ever do make a Leo deck, I probably will just add this card in again, because it's pretty decent at facilitating Lifestream Dragon. Drill Synchron and Drill Warrior are two very iconic cards from their era, but they're just not that great nowadays anymore. There's better ways to protect a Drill Warrior than having to go -1 to banish it for the turn. Next up, Nitro Synchron and Nitro Warrior. These are also two ones that I really, really like, but all they are is attack power. It's really not how Yusei's playstyle has kind of developed into the modern age. Not to mention, it's still a specific tuner with a not-so-good effect needed for a specific Synchro monster. It's like, you know, it's better to play the stuff that's just easier to summon, get out on the board, and actually Synchro summon. Naturally, Performapal Odd-Eye Synchron is a Yuya card. Naturally, Necro Synchron is a Sherry card. Junk Anchor is another one that can substitute itself for any Synchron, but with the same case as Quick Draw, there's just not much need to substitute a Synchron tuner anymore. Junk Mail is an interesting one, but it's a little more difficult to get on the field because it's not a Synchron in itself, so I decided to leave it out. Turbo Synchron and Turbo Warrior only really interact with other Synchro monsters, which in the modern day, Yusei's not gonna be guaranteed to go up against another Synchro deck, so these two feel kind of outdated and irrelevant now. Righty Driver and Lefty Driver can only really make level 4s, and Armory Arm's a little bit outdated. I can't think of any other level 4 Synchros that Yusei has used, so there's those. Cyber Synchron naturally is a Yusaku card. Changer Synchron, changing an opponent's monster's battle position, has very, very small amounts of utility. I'd rather play Unknown Synchron that can at least kind of Cyber Dragon its way onto the field if it finds itself in the hand. Because when I'm thinking about level 1 Synchrons I want to play, naturally I'm going to want to try to summon them off of Junk Speeder, so any summoning condition they have from the hand might be irrelevant, but you've always got to prepare for the corner case where you find those monsters in your hand and you want to figure out what to do with them. And so Unknown Synchron is at least better for that purpose than Changer Synchron is. And then we've also got the other amazing level 1 tuner of Jet Synchron. Rocket Synchron's a Revolver or Varus card, so yeah. Mono Synchron is just not good at all. Into some of the other Synchros I didn't play: Junk Destroyer, Junk Berserker, and Junk Archer. These are all serviceable monsters, but I felt that having more Synchro Warriors was more important than having more Junk Synchro monsters, especially since we already have Junk Speeder and Junk Warrior, so that is already 2 Junk Synchros. I'd toss these 3 in the honorable mentions. They're not bad. Like, I feel like they might still have a little bit of utility in the modern day. Like, Junk Archer temporarily banishes a card. Junk Berserker is a Berserker. It automatically destroys anything in defense that it attacks and can boost itself. And Destroyer's honestly not terrible removal if you summon it with a lot of materials. Junk Gardena, on the other hand, is a little bit poorer of a monster. It's made to have a lot of defensive capabilities, but even then, it's not very good at them. It just changes battle positions a lot. On to some other Synchro warriors. There's Lightning Warrior, who's just minuscule burn damage. Seven Swords Warrior, which only is really good with equip cards, and there's no equip cards in this deck. Mighty Warrior, who just kind of has a lame version of Flame Wingman's effect. It's not great. Gravity Warrior, just another battle position changer that has some minimal attack boosts. Not great. Scarred Warrior only really helps out other warrior type monsters. And a lot of Yusei's cards are machines and dragons, so it wouldn't help out with Yusei's entire deck. Catapult Warrior is just so lame. I don't think I need to explain why we're not playing this one. And that's the last Yusei Synchro that we're not really playing in this deck, so I think I've covered all my bases there. And with that, I don't think there's anything else I really need to cover. Obviously, in the anime, Yusei played a lot of bad cards on purpose because they were all he had, such as freaking Max Warrior. I don't think I need to explain why we're not playing this one. Same goes for a lot of the other worst cards Yusei played, like Sonic Chick. So I think with all those out of the way, that should be it for this deck profile. Until next time, I've been Wham Bam Duel, and I'm always happy to see you.